just I thought it'd be better to kind of have more of a conversational sort of tone. And if anything I say, does resonate with you, please, don't hesitate to ask questions later. Or if anything is really confusing, you can raise your hand for some clarification if anybody has some thoughts or questions. And really, one of the main reasons why, of course, I wanted to come down and talk here was that IPL is really doing some great work. And there's a real opportunity, I think, around the state, around the nation, to engage a diverse set of communities in the climate change issue, in the community action issue, in really taking responsibility to deal with this impending problem. So I thought I started at a pretty high level. I imagine the folks in the room here, you guys sort of buy into the idea that climate change is real and it's going to be a problem. And I think what we just heard is it's going to get hot, and it's going to get hot in LA, and it's going to get hot around the state, really. In California, there have been a number of polls, and in this state, we have probably the highest amount of voter confidence and public confidence that we need to do something to reduce emissions, and that the state is doing something that, although it may create extra cost, extra requirements for individuals in their lives, that we're willing to deal with that. We're willing to accept some small cost, some small impact on our lives to deal with this issue. And when we look at where we're going right now, the economy has, of course, had some turmoil years of late. It's growing again, and we're expected to reach, in California, about 500 million tons of emissions. That number is really big, but when you compare it to the world, it's not necessarily the biggest in the world, of course. When you look at where we are as a state, we're about the world's 9th largest economy. So if we were our own country, we'd be the 9th largest in the world. And that's really kind of where we are in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And where we need to be in order to stabilize the climate as the world, the consensus is we need to get to about 80% below where the world was in the year 1990. So not only do we need to get back to where we were in 1990, which is about 20% below where we are today, we need to keep going much, much further. So not only do we need the policies of AB 32 that are right now, and AB 32 really sunsets in the year 2020, we need to create this system for reducing emissions much, much further and inspiring reductions not just here in California, but really across the world. And I'll just offer a really quick story before we jump into really what AB 32 is. And a lot of people in the northeastern part of the U.S., they get that climate change is real, and that some years the economy is more important, some years the environment is more important, other years it's some other issue. But Hurricane Sandy came through and really wiped out a lot of people. And right now there's a very high consciousness of the linkage between extreme weather events and climate change. And what climate change can do, not only to your houses, but to your livelihood and to your energy system, has really been demonstrated by Sandy. And when you think about people there that have been without power for weeks and have had their whole homes inundated with water, it's a wake-up call for a lot of people. And in California, we had heat waves a couple of years ago that in the Central Valley caused thousands of people to die, really. Older individuals that were not able to leave their houses in, say, the Central Valley. And this heat wave came through. People that didn't have as much resources for running their air conditioning all the time. And you really do get these public health impacts. Not only was this heat wave causing distress to individuals, it causes extra air pollution and causes extra health impacts, not just for the heat, but for the whole physiology of the person. And so when you look at the problem we're facing, it's not just LA getting warmer. It's not just air pollution. It's major events like Sandy. It's major snowfall reductions, major water system reductions, and really energy systems. So top to bottom, we have a whole system-wide issue that is going to be impacted by climate change. So in 2006, California, under the leadership of Governor Schwarzenegger, whether you agree with Schwarzenegger or not on his personal life, I think in the environmental community, we of course do see him as a champion on this issue. And so it placed California as a leader in terms of the reduction pathway and portfolio of approaches that the state was going to implement. And then once the law was passed in 2006, the state developed a plan called the scoping plan for how we're going to reduce emissions to get us back down to 1990 levels. Knowing that's an imperfect endpoint, it's as far as we're able to go for now, and knowing that we'll need to go much, much further. And so the state adopted a whole range of regulations. They bumped up how much energy we need to get from renewables, up to 33%. By the year 2020, we have to have that amount of our energy supplied by renewable resources, zero carbon resources. We have to remake the types of fuel that we use here in the state. We have to improve the efficiency of our appliances and our buildings and our businesses. And we have to do things that not only go there, but get the specific GHG emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions, reduced. And so they decided we're going to adopt a cap and trade program. Back then, the law was not passed with the construct of creating a carbon tax or creating big tax frameworks. They said, well, let's think about market mechanisms that can inspire reductions and inspire additional investments. And so they decided to go with this cap and trade program. Similar to programs that have been successful in other places like the northeastern U.S. where they were able to combat acid rain using cap and trade. That was back in 1990. The Bush administration passed the cap and trade program for sulfur dioxide, requiring power plants across the U.S. to reduce emissions. It's very effective there. There's also a program like this in Europe where they're reducing emissions. And so what's been happening over the last 4 or 5 years is the Air Resources Board has been designing this particular program in concert with those other regulations to start really on January 1 of 2013. And on that date, you're going to have the 350 biggest facilities in California subject to emission reduction requirements. And what we're talking are refineries, cement plants, big manufacturing plants, big power plants, some coal-fired power plants that import electricity in California. It's really the gamut of businesses that are the big point source polluters in California. Not only are these the polluters of greenhouse gas emissions, they're the polluters of criteria pollutants all throughout the state. For example, the refineries in California, if you look at the biggest emitters for criteria pollutants, if you look at the top 10 biggest polluters, refineries are like 1 through 8. So we're talking about things that not only cause greenhouse gas emissions, but really impact the communities that we live in, and many times are located in disadvantaged communities because of the way that our permitting and development land use patterns have emerged over time. So that's really what we're talking about here. Not just a greenhouse gas program, but a public health protection program. And so, excuse me, I'm just getting a little cold. So the program, as designed, has a cap on the overall amount of emissions that can be emitted by these select businesses over time, and it reduces so that the aggregate amount of emissions, the total amount of emissions, decreases. It doesn't say, business A or business B, you need to reduce your emissions by X. What it says is, we're going to create this system of credits and exchanges where businesses have the opportunity to either reduce on-site and earn extra credits, which they can sell to others, or if it's not cost-effective for an individual business to reduce, they can go find in a marketplace somebody else that has been able to reduce their emissions cost-effectively. It's a complex program, one that is sometimes, because of its complexity, prevents people from really seeing the opportunity that can be created by it, but one that has been proven to find cost-effective emission reductions and to reduce overall emissions quickly and cheaply. That's what happened in the SO2 program. And let me just put out some figures here. At the beginning of the SO2 program, industry said it was going to cost $100 billion to reduce those emissions. What they found was, by instituting this program, they were able to get emission reductions twice as fast as otherwise planned and at 1/3 the cost. And so these types of programs are able to really seek out and inspire new emission reduction technologies, and that's really what California is banking on. Because what we need are new ideas, we need California ingenuity, we need California businesses, we need California inventors, the UCs, the everybody, to really take hold of this problem and to reduce emissions. However, this program is not met with open arms from everybody. There's a number of skeptics, a number of